Ladies and gentlemen, Oklahoma.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drake here, and today in the stream yard, I got Mr. Davey Wise. Davey. David, what's going on, my guy?
Davey Wise. All right. We're gonna scrap that for next time because we're gonna call me David or Dave. But I'm doing great, Drake, because we're about to win our 10th game, and today I'm gonna tell you why.
Perfect, Davey. Thank you so much for that, folks. Thank you guys so much for being Locked On Seminoles, your first listen each and every single day, and also being with us through here, the 2022. This will be the second of our last. This will be our last show for the two of us here for this year, but we'll be back next week. We do want to apologize for December was a wild month for the both of us. We get really busy around the holidays due to the nature of myself and Dave's professional day jobs. We're both attorneys, but we're here to send you off on the right foot. We have the show today, and then tomorrow, the day of the actual game, we do have the Know Your Foe for the last one for the year with Mr. John Williams and Josh Helmer of Locked On Sooners. But Dave, you're right. Let's go talk about the game. Oklahoma Sooners, right now, FSU is favored as a 9.5-point favorite for this game. Could you let the folks know why on a macro level, and then we'll look at offensively and defensively and shorten the other segments.
Yeah. So briefly, it's been an interesting early tenure for Brent Venables at Oklahoma. I think the expectations around that program, in light of what they've been lately, have been extremely high. I think they thought that Brent Venables was, I think everyone thought that once he had a chance to break away from Clemson and be a head coach somewhere, which seemed inevitable, that he would find success, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Brent Venables is one of the best defensive minds in college football, which makes Oklahoma a really weird team to look at because historically, just like every other team in the Big 12, seems like they're good at offense and just nobody plays defense over there. Well, that's the case for Oklahoma this year, boys and girls. Oklahoma is really, really, really bad on defense. And we'll get into this some more, but there may be some opportunities here for Florida State's defense to slow down that offense as well. Obviously not the offense that had Caleb Williams last year, who just won the Heisman his first year at USC with Lincoln Riley. So yeah, it is a bit of a diluted Oklahoma team, especially from what you know of them lately offensively, although they did play well offensively this year. And on defense, at times this year, they've been a sieve. And that's good for Florida State in this game. Both sides of the ball. I think you have the winning matchup in this game. Let's talk about why, Drake.
Let's talk about why, and mainly I think it starts offensively for us where, like Dave, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a Oklahoma defense that ranks 68th in the country in S&P+. Now, overall in S&P+, Oklahoma is a 19th overall team. That's mainly because they do have a very dynamic offense that's nothing short of surprising when you bring over Jeff Lebby, who was probably one of the main catalysts for why Mackenzie Milton and UCF had that run at the end of the 2010s. Also with Ole Miss last year with Matt Corral. But now you see him with Dillan Gabriel trying to replicate the same thing. Dillan Gabriel is a very solid quarterback, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But the weapons around him with Marvin Mims is a solid weapon. They are missing several pieces, like Eric Gray has opted out. Both their left and right tackle has opted out for this game. But mainly it just shows, I think it's more that this team, Oklahoma team, is kind of where we were 2 years ago. It's not very deep, and there's a lot of growing pains where someone's going to try to bring their philosophy to the program.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Drake. One of the strengths of this Oklahoma team that we were going to go over in this matchup was their offensive line play. Their offensive line has played well both in terms of pass blocking and run blocking this year. However, you take two of their starting offensive linemen out of that mix, and suddenly I believe you're looking at an offensive line that's going to allow Florida State opportunities, especially a Florida State team that has been especially for large portions of the end of the season, really prolific getting after the quarterback and stuffing the run at times. So again, look what happened. Look what happened to us this year when you took offensive linemen out of our starting lineup, or when we had to shuffle. It didn't look good, and that's not that's not a unique problem to Florida State, unless you're Alabama and you have Blastoises sitting on the bench just waiting
That's
for
your
their turn,
favorite reference now.
waiting for their turn to never give up a sack. Then great, but that's not the case for other teams. And Oklahoma had a lot of kids transfer. I think the recruiting class looked a little different under Brent Venables than it would have under Lincoln Riley. So look, it's they're still early in what they're trying to do over there. But that has nothing to do with this year. And this year, you're looking at an offense that, like you said, with Dylan Gabriel is a little limited. We all saw what Dylan Gabriel did at UCF, and he was good. He's not like a Heisman winner or anything, or Heisman contender or anything.
Oh, but
So
he can effectively run like a decent spread offense. Like he does have the legs for. He's a good quarterback. I think the best way to put it, he's good, but he's not someone that you say, oh, I can see him leading us potentially to the 10-win kind of plateau, even if you're in the Big 12.
yeah, that's right, Drake. So I'm not overly worried about like a Dylan Gabriel matchup. Like to the extent this is hyped up as like a Jordan Travis versus Dylan Gabriel. I don't believe Dylan Gabriel belongs in the same breath as Jordan Travis at this point. So that's an easy if you're grading who has the better quarterback in that matchup, I think that's easy. I think look, Oklahoma's offensive line, it's going to be tough to project because we have our whole offensive line playing in this game, but I would expect us to have the better of the two lines between the two teams with them missing players. So if you're winning the line of scrimmage on offense and you have the better quarterback on offense, right? Oklahoma was a good running team this year. But guess what? So was Florida State. We were a top 10 running team. They were the number 14 running team. And that had a lot to do with their offensive line. So you downgrade that offensive line. Um, you have a group of receivers at Oklahoma that are 64th in the country. And
And one of them opted out, and also for the running back, their leading rusher opted out too.
so, again, was a good running team, was a bad receiving team already, was a good offensive line, not really scared about their quarterback. Are you getting the tune we're playing here, Drake?
Yeah, I kind of pick up what we're throwing down. Also, folks, with the opt outs with the offensive line, when we had John and Josh on for Know Your Foe last night, they did tell me that they're starting a true freshman at the tackle spot. And do you know, Dave, who he's going to be going up against as a true freshman at the tackle spot from our squad?
Drake is his name. Does his name rhyme with Vera Jurse?
Yes, and I believe hopefully this kid does not end up in a hearse by the end of the game. But overall, to me, it's going to be a challenge for the man because the opt outs have definitely decimated this Oklahoma team. That's why the line you've seen has I think jumped from the 6.5 to almost 10 at this point. So
Yeah, that feels right, Drake. So we've just talked about offense. We'll get to the defense next, Drake. But the offensive matchup, I don't see a position group where you don't feel because of their opt outs at a minimum, like we are toe to toe with them or better. And frankly, I think better at each of those positions we've gone over so far. So let's see if that's the case on defense. I don't think there's much of a surprise waiting for everyone here based on what I've already said. But Drake, before that, will you please tell our folks about something that will make their lives better?
well, folks, what truly makes your lives better is our friends over at BetOnline, because BetOnline, folks, is simply where the game starts. And for one last time, really quickly, let's do the fade day segment of the day, of the millennium, of the year. David, Ohio State is a plus 6.5 point dog against Georgia in one of the CFP semifinals. Dave, one last time for the year, who are you taking in this game and por qué?
Drake, real football is played in the South. I regret to inform everyone of that. Georgia's going to win by more than 6.5. Ohio State's been vulnerable this year. Obviously, they're one of the best teams in the country. No, they have.
No, no,
Um,
no, I'm just shocked you actually give me real, like, thought out analysis right now. I wasn't prepared for that.
yeah, yeah, get over it. Georgia's it just frustrates me to no end. Stetson Bennett is an absolutely terrible quarterback, and I don't understand it. But yeah, Georgia by 12.
And folks, take Ohio State at plus 6.5 because always to make money here, you're gonna want to fade Dave over at BetOnline. Use promo code Locked On LOCKEDON because BetOnline is simply where the game starts. And we are back. We are rock and roll here on Locked On Seminoles. And thank you guys so much for making us your first listen each and every single day. Now, David, we
Yeah.
talked offensively. Now and we briefly touched on defense. Let's do a little more of a deeper dive with the defense overall, so to speak, with Oklahoma. They did lose Nick Bonito to the NFL draft last year, but it has been a kind of a not even Jekyll and Hyde, just a Jekyll and Jekyll sort of kind of, I guess, season for the Sooners defensively. Whereas basically the talent is like not quite there yet, but also scheme wise, there have been some issues with new defensive coordinator Ted Roof. I wanted to ask you overall, when you've seen this team, I guess from what you've seen or what the numbers telling you defensively, what are we expecting from Oklahoma when we see them on Thursday?
Drake, that defense, they've been bad on defense. Let's just call it what it is. We don't need to sugarcoat this. Oklahoma under Brent Venables, I expected to be one of the best defensive teams in the country. Maybe that wasn't fair to expect that year one, but I did not expect the offense of theirs to be this far ahead of the defense. Um, like you said, they lost talent to the draft, but there's still been no excuse for, I think, what a lot of fans in that fan base have been frustrated by with one of the preeminent defensive coordinators coming in and their defense not getting better and arguably getting worse. So we're talking about a defense that, depending on where you look, is outside the top 50 in the country. Um, that's obviously not gonna cut it. If you look over at PFF, let's see, they have them at 80th. So again, depending on where you look, you could find Oklahoma looking even worse on defense. Oklahoma's defensive line is not good, Drake. They don't get after the quarterback very well. We're talking like outside the top 100 in certain sack metrics. They don't push offensive lines back a whole lot either. So this Florida State running game has excelled this year in spite of what has once again been really bad run blocking. And this is not the Oklahoma team that's going to give your offensive line fits in terms of what it wants to do run blocking. So you may actually see a better run blocking effort out of Florida State in this game than you've seen in a lot of its other games this season. Better than a season average kind of game. And like I said, in terms of getting after the quarterback, this isn't the kind of game where you're going to need to bring in like Marcus and Douglas to double team a bunch of guys on their defensive line trying to get after Jordan Travis. It's just not a major concern with that team. Their defensive line isn't it doesn't overly excel in much, but especially not in terms of getting after the passer. So if you're able to keep a clean pocket for Jordan Travis with 5 guys blocking and you're not having to bring in extra guys, that's going to allow extra guys to run routes. And we have excellent wide receivers now at Florida State, which I realize is a weird thing to say and realize and understand and appreciate, but that's where we are. And again, just not an Oklahoma team that's going to be suited to cover our receivers. You can't find me a lot of good rankings or ratings for Oklahoma on their defense, Drake. Not a single guy rated 80 on PFF. They don't have what
But
their top.
to be fair, their top three are around like 75. Ethan Downs, Jordan Kelly, actually are pretty good defensive interior linemen. But
Sure.
to your point, they're not elite at pass rushing, not very good at pass rushing. They're kind of like, I guess what the kids call mid. They're a mid at
Yeah,
rushing the passer overall.
that's right.
And this is an offensive line that is still the healthiest it's been in a long time. It's been continuity that we've needed for a while. So defensively, on defensive line, it's nothing, I guess, so should be surprising that we see on Thursday. And I think it's more that the defensive back room has been very, very abysmal for
Yeah.
Oklahoma. And that's something that basically, if you've seen Oklahoma's recruiting, they actually are number 5 in the country, overall from 247 Sports. And they have just landed, I think, 6 blue chip recruits in the DB room for the past 2 seasons. I think 2 of them being 5 stars in this current cycle. So they do know they need the help. So defensively, talent wise, they really don't have it right now. Actually, over in what's the city in Oklahoma? Norman. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. Look at what our coaching staff did with the wide receiver room this offseason. This past offseason. We took like 8 wide receivers. And when that happens, that's usually an indication of what the coaching staff feels about that position. So, yeah, there's a reason that Oklahoma staff is going out and trying to attract so much elite DB talent because they don't have it. They have one guy, one cornerback, or one defensive back. I'll expand that, rated above 71 on PFF. So, just good luck. Good luck to that defensive back room, whose defensive line is not helping them by adding pressure on the quarterback, covering these receivers for Florida State. Um, just that is all I could say. When the defensive line's not open, the defensive back room, and the defensive back room's not covering well enough to give time to the defensive line to get to the quarterback, that's a recipe for disaster. And when you're talking about a Florida State offensive line that has again gotten better this year, and a Florida State receiver room that's been giving fits to even the better defensive backs in the country, this just isn't the right matchup for Oklahoma's defense, and it's not the kind of game they need to be playing in right now to have confidence going into the offseason. This is a big plus for Florida State in terms of this matchup.
So I'm actually going to push back on that in the next segment. I do want to give a shout out to Billy Bowman, the safety you just mention, the only, I think, defensive back that's rated 70 or above. He's a very, very good player, but there's a reason why certain defensive back recruits that didn't want to go to several schools, including Florida State, because if the defensive line can get pressure, why the hell am I going to put myself on an island for so long and actually make myself look worse over on tape? But we'll talk more about basically the implications of this game after a few words from our sponsors. Okay, Dave. It's the end of the road. It's the end of the show. Usually I give you this last time, basically kind of bring with a random thought in the question, but I have a question for you before I actually go into it. And something I asked Josh and John yesterday. You said that this game basically FSU kind of has nothing to lose playing this game. I kind of disagree with that overall, personally. Primarily because I think this is a game where Oklahoma, they don't have anything to lose in this game. They've already had a 6-6 season. They're kind of basically favored. They're basically resigned to the fact that everyone thinks they're going to lose this game. They already have a top 5 recruiting class. Transfer portal wise, they're also in the top 10. So to me, with this game, it just allows them to have the young guys to play and play a lot more snaps. The players that we're talking about, Ethan Downs, Jordan Kelly, those are younger guys. So to me, is it just me, or do you feel like this game, basically FSU, all we need to do here is just play the game, not get injured, and just get out of Dodge?
Okay, first of all, did I say that Florida State has nothing to lose in this game?
Probably not, but it's really early in the morning. I haven't had my coffee yet, if we're being completely honest.
Here's what this game feels like to me. I think Dillan Gibbons summed it up best when he did an interview on this, and he said, "We want it more." Um, when you're talking about a team that's been reeling for a lot of the year, Oklahoma does have very little to lose for sure. They're playing with house money in this game. They barely feel like a bowl quality team, and they're early in their tenure of Brent Venables. So I don't think the expectation was for them to go out there and win 10 games this year. That would have been preposterous and for him to do that so early on. So yeah, I mean, I think every team wants to go into the offseason with confidence and not feeling like Florida losing whatever was it 38-3 to whoever the hell they played. Oregon State. Yeah, like no one wants to go into the offseason, especially under a newer coach, feeling that way. Florida fans are going to be pissed off all offseason. That's exactly what Oklahoma fans would be if I
Well,
mean
that's because they had a Heisman candidate quarterback, playing, and Billy Napier wasn't able to maximize the offense.
right.
But I pick up what you're throwing down.
So yeah, I mean for Florida State, the implications I think are much bigger than for Oklahoma. Like if you don't win your 7th game, sucked. We'll get him next year. We got to work on things. Look what we did in the recruiting class. It's an easy message to sell for Oklahoma. I think Florida State and Florida State fans, I think, so obviously expect to win this game
Mhm.
that losing it would set Florida State Twitter ablaze.
It'll be a WTF moment for everybody involved.
It would. It just feels like it's a foregone conclusion at this point that we're going to win this game. It's not like a step on the field and we win type of game. This is Oklahoma still. I mean, they have shit they need to work on, but it's Oklahoma and they have a lot of talent on that roster still. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about who needs it more, I think Florida State needs this game a lot more. I think Florida State's the better team. I think Florida State should win this game, but weird stuff happens when you make 22 guys line up and do things on time for 60 minutes with an oblong football.
With an oblong football. And also when you give each team about what, 2.5, 3 weeks to kind of like, game plan,
Yeah.
prep, and also you kind of know that a lot of certain players are out. Where FSU is kind of it's one of the few teams, the only team that has had kids that they know are transferring. We've had not a single opt out, which is very just unheard of in today's modern day college football. And that's just something I think it's just a testament to the program that Mark Neville and company has built. So I mean, I'm very excited for this game tomorrow.
Yeah, I am too, Drake. I think we have a lot. We have a hungry fan base. Oklahoma, I think, has had their fan base satiated more than we have lately. You could say, with some of the success they've had under Lincoln Riley, we have not had that, and it just feels like a 10-win season for this team is so mind blowing. And it feels like the perfect matchup to get it because it's a revenge game from years ago. It's against a blue blood team that happens to suck right now, and it's a defense that Jordan Travis should carve apart, which is exactly what, like that's why we struggled against NC State. That's why we struggled against Clemson. Really good defenses. It's not going to be what we're facing here. So it just feels like a perfect storm for Florida State of this matchup and of this game.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Trayshawn Ward rush for 100 plus. Trey Benson rush for 100 plus. Also, let's see Rodney Hill get in there too, kind of towards the end game. I want to see basically the future with him, AJ Duffy under center. See Kentron Portier one side, Malik McLean. Also, I'm just excited overall to see that it's nice that FSU is finally on the precipice of winning its 10th game. Basically, just it's been a hard few years, and it just now feels like we're on the precipice of something great because next season, 2023, it's no longer Elite Live season, folks. It is what Dave called before the year Elite Truths. And you know what? It's going to be awesome to share that with y'all. David, please let the folks know how much you love them and just let them know for one last time where to find us.
Folks, before I do that, I'm going to tell you Florida State minus 8.5 is really easy.
It's 9.5.
9.5 doesn't matter. I would take us up to 12, like 13.5. But folks, thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking with us all season. We're gonna have a lot of good stuff for you in the off season. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna have some fun guests on. But thank you for being here each and every day and allowing us to do what we do. For the podcast, find us anywhere you find your podcast: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google Play, and all the other places I don't know the names of, but we're there. For the YouTube, give this video a like if you liked it, which you should, please. Subscribe to the channel, ding the little bell, turn on your notifications. That will let you know when our episodes drop. And please do leave us a comment with your score prediction. If anybody actually gets the score right, we'll have you on. How about that?
No, we're not doing that, folks. We're not doing that. I can't trust any of y'all. I'm just joking, folks. Please get it right. If you get spot on, correct, everything else, that's a different story. If it's multiple people, because we can tell when you put that on there, we also can tell when you edit them, because we will know if it's correct or not. But for Dave, this is Drake, and we'll see y'all next time on Locked On Seminoles. Take care, everybody.
Last time, go Noles.